Hey everybody, welcome to Bench Your Addiction with Greg and Ryan. Early morning edition this week. This week's episode, we're going to talk about making yourself a priority. So,
Yeah, man.
go ahead.
So absolutely, uh, my schedule took a radical shift a week ago today. Um, so I'm doing I'm doing a full time commercial paint job, hotel, new build, and everything. So it's all going up, and as a result, I'm not in the gym all day long anymore. And today my schedule is pretty freaking packed. So what I ended up doing this morning, I rolled out of bed at about 3:40, cooked all my food, got to the gym. Uh, got to the gym at about just before 5. Sipped on my pre-workout, got my deadlift set in, and a couple of accessories, and then I should have about 45 minutes again later today, like a 45-minute gap. And my intention is to do all the supplemental accessory kind of stuff, like the pull downs, the rows, the whatever, all that accessory kind of back work stuff is going to be done later. And I don't necessarily like the fact that I can't just put it all together, because I'm gonna come in and like not have a pump. Like I'm not gonna feel like I'm gonna have to like get back into
The
that
groove.
that
Yeah.
mindset of really trying to push something challenging, push something difficult, and I'm gonna have to do it after hauling around paint buckets and painting walls. And like it's really not that hard. It's there's some physical stuff, like physical aspects to this work, but for the most part, my conditioning, the work ethic that I've or the workouts that I've done to this point, especially being a strongman, really conducive to moving stuff around. So it's not been bad, but the thing is, like, I'm gonna have to be like, I'll be on my feet for a solid 8 hours, maybe longer, and like I'll come back to the gym, and my feet will be aching, my back potentially will be a little bit sore, my shoulders are gonna be tired, but there's still work to do. And God willing, if I have the time, if I have that 45-minute window, like I think I'm going to have, then we're just gonna get it done.
Yep. Yeah, man, you made me think of this post I saw this week where like it was a trucker filling up his gas. He was a gas trucker and he was filling up whatever gas station it was, and he was on a bench next to the gas pumps, hitting the curls. He had the weights out and everything. And it was just in between his job. You know what I mean? Getting it when he could. Right? Making yourself a priority. I can picture you with the paint buckets, getting some rows in real quick. Like I gotta do this. I'll be right back. Yeah, man, making yourself priorities like a big deal, right? Like this year, I've been talking a lot about this, but this year's been a big season of no, right? And like it's some friends and some friendships have had like kind of gone to the wayside and like taken it personally. But like this year's really been a season of no for me, especially like getting ready for competitions and like with all of my business growing and all these other things going on, right? Like, when I look at my schedule, a friend of mine this week was like, "Hey, you want to get dinner soon?" And I looked at my schedule and I was like, in 45 days. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's the next free time I have. And I was like, oh man.
Right.
And then and it's been great for my business, man. Like I had a client reach out to me last night and I was like, uh-oh, I don't have a spot for you. I was like looking at my schedule. I was like, oh wait, in 2 weeks on Tuesday at 11, does that work? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, what I mean? That's the point we're at. But it's because I've been saying a lot of no's to friends, right? Like, even had one friend get like mad about it. He's like, "You don't respond to my texts anymore. You're not taking our friendship as a priority." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like, it's like there's a priority list for me, man. It's family, health, business, right? Everything else is under that, right? But like those are the priorities." And that's really a mindset I got from my coach. Like, I was talking to him this year about like I was struggling balancing everything and like getting ready for competition, and then like my dad passed, and then I was like, having my own family and then my kid going to new school. And I was like, man, how do you prioritize all this in business? And he broke it down and he was like, look, man, anything else outside those things, especially during the season, it's like, I don't know how important that is to you, but at that point, it's like, what does that mean? And what I've realized is that the people who really care about you will like understand that you're making yourself priority and they want to see you do better. And that's a good thing, right? Like everyone wants to do better and be better, right? But how often do we talk about it versus doing it? And it feels good to be doing it, right? And like it worked, right? Like I got my pro card this year, right? I just celebrated 10 years sober, right? Like there's lots of good things going on, right? Business is booming, literally. And these are all because I said a lot of no's to things, like even on vacation. Like my wife went on a couple of vacations this year that I didn't go on, and she's going on another one soon that I'm not going on. She's going to London with, and like part of me is like, oh, I want to go to London, but like it's just not in my schedule this year. It's just realistic. I'll have to go again in like 2 years. Right. Um, but yeah, man, that's making myself a priority, right?
Yeah, and it's back to the quote that I said in the podcast is like if you don't fill your schedule with your highest priority task, somebody else will fill your schedule with theirs. So you have to, and I love the list that you have, right? Because once you have your values list, it's really easy to figure out how to make decisions. Like once your values are in order, then it's not complicated, man, and it's really not. And like my workouts are a non-negotiable, right? So taking care of my family, right? I don't have any children, but plan to have children um, in the future, and so like me and my girl have talked about, me and my fiance have talked about having one of our own children and then going out and adopting, and and so to do something like that, obviously I want to be like I want to be a breadwinner, not in the sense of like the only income where I mean like if that's how it works out, that's how it works out. I'd really prefer if I have choice, I'd prefer to be able to make enough money to sustain my family unit, to provide for my family unit like that, and then have my fiance. I haven't talked to her about this, and she may watch this, so I know that this will be a conversation starter for us later. I'm sure, but like to have her to have her in the home with our children, like have her have like because we're a Christ-based family, and we will abide by those kinds of things. And like there's from my perspective, there's a lot that's going on in the world, especially in the American education system, that kind of seems a little bit wonky, right? And so like what I need to do in order to provide for my family, I will do, and whatever that ends up looking like, right? And then my health, man, it wasn't a choice. There was no option. Once my alarm went off, it was time to get up. There was no snooze. The snooze button on my phone is disabled for a reason, right? And because I
Nice.
like a while ago, I found myself doing that. Like a couple years ago, when I was still deep in the bottle, deep in the pipe, whatever. Um, I was still I was like I would hit snooze because it's like I'd set a priority to I'd set an intention the night before. I'm going to work out before my first client, and then I would not follow through. And then for the rest of that day, after I hit snooze a half a dozen times, had horrible sleep and whatever, like for the rest of the day, I had no integrity with self because I told myself I was going to do something and then I failed to follow through. And so like it's so much harder for me to believe the things that I say I'm going to do when I don't follow through on them when I'm supposed to. So like I just thought about this. You ever make plans with somebody like in advance, and then when you're excited about it, but then that means that you have to go out on a Friday night. And you're like, damn it, I really wish I didn't make those plans,
Yeah.
but I said I was going to go, so I'll at least show up and save face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, um, you write those checks to yourself. It's just like I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get my workout in, right, and I'm going to have my food. Like I love looking around the job site, and the guy that I work for, he's had the same lunch every day. So I'm assuming he's had the same lunch for 41 years because that's how long he's been painting, and it's a plastic bag full of cookies, a sandwich like on white bread with like this little tiny sliver of that fake lunch meat stuff that they have. Like it says turkey, but like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then I forgot the other bowl. I mean, yesterday he had a big old bag of grapes, which is, I mean, it's a fruit, I guess, but it's still sugar.
Yeah.
Like, like you just pack it on the sugar, man, and like I said, I don't perceive painting to like of the trades of the type of physical labor that's out there. Painting's relatively light. Like I mean, you roll around a brush, you wield a sprayer. Sometimes you move some buckets of paint, but for the most part, like it's like
You
physically,
get you getting your steps in.
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Like I wish I had a step counter because like it'd be interesting to see, but I'm easily 12, 15,000 plus whatever. I'm sure by the end of the day, probably more. But I like to round down. I don't like to give myself extra credit for things that I'm not entirely sure of. So I really try to make sure that I cut it down so I don't get this overinflated sense of how much I'm doing. I think that's really important. It's important for me anyway.
Yeah, keep yourself in check.
Yeah, keep yourself in check, man, because um, like I know for sure the last time the last time that like I was taking credit for all the good stuff that was going on in my life and not giving credit to God, like I downturn real quick because like it's like when things are going good and I say that I am the creator of my own destiny, like it feels good in that moment, but inherently some type of bad happens, some type of hardship happens. And if I'm responsible for the good, I'm also responsible for the bad, which means that I made horrible decisions and brought myself into a really crappy position. And like it makes the highs higher, makes the lows lower, and that split between the two is such a drastic change, and it damn near killed me a few times. So like I really like I love the word equanimity, which is basically to stay even keel,
Hmm.
despite the highs and the lows. Like you know, I mean, you might have a little bit of a wave, like you might go up a little bit, you might go down a little bit, but the extremes of the good and the bad. The good isn't as good, but conversely, the bad isn't as bad. And I'd rather feel just a little bit good and then later feel a little bit bad rather than feel like I'm on top of the freaking world and feel like I'm in the ninth ring of hell.
Yeah, yeah, man. You remind me of this. I believe it's Marcus Aurelius quote about like how man should be like this, be like a stone, and
Yeah.
he uses a stone as an example, and he throws it up in the air, and then it hits the ground. And he's like, "Did the stone change?" And like, no. He's like, "You should be like the stone, whether you're going up or you're going down. You should be the same, right?" Like, you know, and like there is something to say to like celebrate your wins so that you keep building momentum, but like don't let it change who you are, right? Like stay on that drive, stay consistent, right? Like, and then like you said, the same thing when things get down, like, okay, cool, we deal with this. Like, don't get upset and beat yourself up or whatever you tell yourself in your head and make it worse. Like, just it's cool. This is the life. This is what's happening, right? Like, there's definitely been some big things in the last couple of years where I was like, okay, this is bad, right? But like we gotta move through it and we just gotta show up and continue to show up no matter what. Right. And like it worked out, right? And that's I think the difference today versus me before. Right. Before I would dwell and be like, oh no, everything's so rough and whatever bullshit I told myself. And like if this person hadn't done this or that person hadn't done that, it'd have been better for me or whatever person I wanted to blame that day. Right. Because like I used to walk around with like a blame thrower, be like, oh, it's all their fault, right? You know what I mean? And that's the difference today in sobriety is like is understanding that like, no man, like this is you, this is it, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and that I was talking to a client yesterday, I was like, you just need to let go, man. She was stressing out about something in her life and like trying to micromanage it and control it. And then a week later, it figured itself out in the way that she wanted it to. Right. And I was like, see? I was like, "What was different?" She was like, "I just had to let go." I was like, "Yeah, I know, man. Like, once you just let go and let the process happen, like, you do your side of the street. Doesn't mean don't do anything and just pray for like rainbows, but like, do your side of the street, show up, and then if things don't work out the way you want them to, just let it go, man. You know?"
Well, and like tie in some Buddhist ideals here is just life is suffering, right? There will be things that happen that suffer, but it ties back into like in my mind it ties back into the value statement that we started off with. It's just like you have your priority list. You know what you need to show up for as yourself as a man. And I know what it like I know and I hope to believe or I believe that I'll become more clear on my values the longer that I walk this path because like the longer you walk a single path, the more narrow it becomes, kind of idea. And but if things are bad, if things are like bad from your perspective, right? You don't. Um, but you know what your values are, you know what your virtues are, you know what's important to you, then you will like the monotony and the drudgery of going through those challenging times and those sufferings have purpose. They have meaning, right? And like that's the human conditions. It's like humans can endure tragic, tragic levels of hell, so long as they have a vision or a hope. I love the book Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl is the author, and he like if there was any man on the face of this earth that had a story where he could resent humanity and resent God himself, it was Viktor Frankl. He was a Jewish doctor. Right before he got stripped of his family, his identity, his belongings, his possessions, his business, his everything, and thrown into the Holocaust, like camps like Auschwitz. I think he was in Auschwitz. I haven't read that book in a while, but like he shares these horrific stories of what it was like to be in one of these internment camps in Germany or in Poland during World War II, and like he shares these stories, and there are these humans that just accepted their fate and died quickly because they were like, well, this is never ending, and like this is more suffering than I can endure or bear. So those humans tended to pass away quickly and suffer in the meantime. And then you and like to just like to on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there were people that were walking around handing out their last blanket or their last crust of bread to somebody else that was suffering just a little bit more. And like the only this idea of the only thing I truly have power over, the only thing I have power that I can exert power over, is my attitude and my perception of and my reaction to the things that are happening in my life. Those are the only things, and that ties back into the stoicism that you referred to in Marcus
Yep.
Aurelius and others. Is that man like a sign of weakness for a man is to be controlled by emotions, because we're not supposed, like, we are emotional, we do experience emotions, we're made in the image of God, and like, you know, it's like God has emotions abundant, and like these are just my beliefs, but like uh, we have emotions, and it's good to have those emotions because those emotions are cues for us to be able to make sound and rational decisions. If I get angry about something, for example, like if someone were to assault a really dear friend of mine, of course I'm going to be angry about it. I'm not going to be happy about it, but it's that, so that anger gives me a signal: this is bad, this is wrong, this is like what, but then what do I do about it? Do I just hop in the car and then go to that guy's house and say, like, meet me in the front yard, or do it like how do I handle it is where like it, and it's going to be per the situation, but how I handle those cues from the emotions that I'm experiencing is what determines whether or not I'm strong or weak.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like, emotions there for a reason, but like, you don't let them dictate everything you do. You still got to do what you got to do, right? Like, and it goes back to that value list and that priority list, right? I know old me would have showed up at that dude's house, right? Right, but like today, no. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, um, so I had a similar situation where I did get upset, but like now I'm much more manageable about it. Like there's a situation at school with my kid and another student, and like I could feel the old me being like, "What? You're not just gonna let that happen?" And I was like, "No, it's okay." You know what I mean? So what does smart me do now? You know what I mean? I email the principal, but I BCC my lawyer, right? About like, what are we doing about this, right? Like a much more manageable, intelligent kind of point of view. And like my friend was like, I would have showed up at the school and been mad and like blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, not anymore. You know what I mean? Like I don't have time for that. Like I do feel mad and I am angry about the situation, but there's not much I can change about it, right? And so that's the difference today, right? Is like the ability to show up and like be a solid person no matter what the situation is. And like, you know, uh, I want to bring up like the Buddhism thing, like life is suffering. Like, yeah, man. So what kind of suffering do you want, right? Like, I think we've talked a little bit this before, right? Like when I was overweight, I suffered, right? Like now when I go to the gym, I suffer, right? Like regardless, getting up at 4 in the morning to go to the gym is not something that like I'm like, yeah, let's go when my alarm goes off, man. It's like, cool, this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? Right? Like, and regardless, you're gonna suffer, but it's better if you pick your suffering, right? Than just be let it be picked for you in life.
Yeah, choose your suffering, man. Because
Yeah.
like I love that. Like being, it's I heard it from Mark Bell. Maybe he got it from somebody else, but you know, being fat is hard. Being shredded is hard. Being rich is hard. Being poor is hard. And he like put these opposite ends of the spectrum on it. Like having a business is hard. Working for someone else is hard. Like pick your heart, right? And like, or like you said, let it be picked for you, right? And like
Yep.
this is where um like I think I'll finish with this, but like I think I heard it said just like when you take like when you take responsibility for the possibility of being wrong, you become a leader. Like you like because that's what people want in a leader. Like people want in a leader to make decisions. If you're going to be a leader of your family, you need to be ready to make decisions, deal with the whatever comes from that, foreseen or not consequences of the decisions that you made. If you want to run your business, then you have to be ready to make decisions. If you want to train people, you need to be ready to make decisions. If you want to work for somebody, you need to be ready to make decisions, and you need to be ready to accept the responsibility of those decisions, man. And like as soon as you do that, people can start to look to you as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Like you need to be willing to make decisions and deal with the fallout of that. So next week we'll talk about like what it's like to make decisions and how you can show up in life.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Awesome, man. All right, see y'all next week.
Can't wait.